Welcome to Catch Outdoors. I'm your host, Captain Rob Modies. This podcast is about living and playing down here in the Florida Keys, a 125-mile-long chain of islands. I cover my favorite sport, fishing, but also all the many things to see and do down here in the Keys. Catch Outdoors, hosted by Spotify, also brought to you by your favorite podcast network. So kick back and relax with me in the Keys. This week's episode of Catch Outdoors is number 137. Hello all. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Again, depending on when you're listening to the podcast. I'm recording this on Monday, May 6th. I'm doing pretty good. I feel like I've been run over by a truck. I spent the last almost a week, 6 days, I guess, in Key West. No, I behaved myself. I did. I really did. I mean, I drank, but I did water and I took breaks and I'm really, really old. So I have to be much more careful. But anyway, there was a lot of, running around, quite frankly, and it was so much fun. And I'll get in that in just a little bit. I do have a few fishing tips to share with you this time around, but no actual fishing trips. Because I spent the entire week, or almost an entire week in Key West at the Songwriters Festival. And I'll get to talking about that in a little bit. Just, that was fun. I will be doing that again. Of course, the weather was windy, and did I mention windy? It really wouldn't have mattered, of course, because I wasn't here and I wasn't worried about fishing this week. And I didn't fish last week. It's been a long drought. Quite frankly, we have had riptide warnings and small craft advisories almost every single day through the month of April and into May. It looks like it might let up this week on Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm hoping tomorrow. I might get out tomorrow. I'm going to take the boat up and fuel it up, and take the covers off and clean it up and make sure everything's working properly. I'm charging the batteries right now, getting all that stuff together because it hasn't been used in several weeks. It's terrible. Almost embarrassing. But I'm not alone. I mean, everybody else you talk to is like, this has been the most ridiculous winter and springtime we've ever had. And I totally agree. Coming back from Key West today, we went over all the bridges so you could see the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf side. And then eventually Florida Bay, and it was choppy the whole time. I just thought, man, is this ever going to go away? It does shut down a lot of quality fishing. You can still fish, don't get me wrong, but in some areas, sight fishing becomes a real issue, and the winds have churned the bottom up. Now our bottom's not muddy, our bottom's sandy, but that's once you churn the sand up, it takes a couple of days of the wind to stop blowing before everything settles down again. So it's been a mess. I'm sorry, I'm complaining. I shouldn't. I was having a lot of fun way down south. So, but my phone kept sending me like these riptide messages and small craft advisory and small craft warnings and all this kind. I'm like, good grief, please stop. There is good news. That wind, that breeze, that's what the weather's. It's breezy. No, it's windy. Helped cool off the weather in Key West. So that was pretty special. And we had, hot days. It did get up to 90, 91 during the day, but the real pleasant part of it was the breezes in the evening and in the early morning were wonderful. I'm not kidding. It was really nice. So a bit hot in the middle of the day, but nowhere near what it's like when you're down there in August or September. But that wind did stay up. I'm not kidding you. It really did. Like I said, supposedly it's supposed to die down tomorrow. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then guess what? Saturday, Sunday, we got a front coming or something, or it's a push from the Atlantic. So we'll see what happens with that. I recently got some new soft plastics I want to try out. That's why I've been experimenting a bunch with this pink flavor that I call, the pink colors that I like to use. I got some more. I found some online that I only ordered a package or two of each just to. Again, this is experimentation. If it goes off as planned, then obviously I'll run right back to online and see what I can get my hands on. It's really hard to find anything in pink in the Florida Keys. I've been to several tackle shops. Everyone's hot on white, and that's normal. That's what I started with when we came down. White on white. You just want it that way. Pearl, pure white, glossy white, eggshell white, whatever they want to call it. But as I've mentioned in many a podcast now, the pink is working well, mixed with white especially. So I got online doing just that, looking for anything like that. And I found two from Z-Man that looked really interesting. Now they have funny wording on their lures. They call these the Streaks Curly Tails. Now it's STREAKZ, Streaks Curly, like it should sound, Tails, TAILZ. The colors I found online were Pink Glow and Coconut Ice Glow. Pink Glow is pink, but it's like a muted or I don't know. It's pink, but it's just not like a hot pink. Okay, it's a little softer. And then the Coconut Ice Glow is fascinating. That one is a impregnated kind of pink with a white mixed in, sort of like the gulps I've been using. Those look really promising, but I'm going to try both just to see what these fish think. Maybe pink is the gig. I don't know. The only difference between the Ice Glow and the Pink Glow is the Ice Glow has just this. It's a lighter pink, first of all, but like I said, it's got a little white. It's actually two-sided. It's got like a belly that's white and a pink on top, or a light pink on top. I really think that's going to work. I really do. But I'll try them both. Hopefully I'll get out there tomorrow and experiment, and if not on Wednesday, and see where we're going this Thursday rather. I got a thing I got to do. Florida Bay Forever. You've heard me talk about this probably over a year ago. I did a spot for the Florida State Parks. I did a video spot for them talking about the importance of saving Florida Bay, of making Florida Bay, make it Florida Bay Forever is what the mission's called, or their push. And I'm into that. Obviously, I fish Florida Bay now, so of course I've been into it before, but I'm really into it now for obvious reasons. But Florida Bay is again one of the things that's being choked by Big Sugar. The water's not coming south like it's supposed to into Florida Bay, and that's extremely important. And the captains for clean water have been all over it this past couple of weeks, explaining what has to happen to get that water to move. And a lot of it is ticking off the sugar folks. They think they're not going to get enough, and in the meantime, they're going to starve the glades. And I'm very disappointed in that. Let's just put it that way. So what's happening is they've come out with a license tag. This was a while back. This is over a year ago when I first saw the very first tag. So I did a spot for them, a video spot for them, while I was up in the Everglades National Park. A nice young lady who, I'm sorry, I can't remember her name, pulled me aside, and we did a video spot about the importance of Florida Bay. Well, the license tag is out. They got enough signatures to actually bring it out. It's orangey in color. You can't miss it. It says Florida Bay Forever on it. I find it quite attractive, and I can't wait to put it on the back of my truck. So I'm waiting for it to arrive here in Monroe County so I can pick up a copy. But there's a big shindig on Thursday at Everglades National Park, a private party for us to go to. It's an invite party, and I got invited, and I can't wait. I'm going to go up there and pat myself on the back because I'm really glad we got enough signatures for this thing. And there's a lot of environmental, Keysy, Evergladesy type things going on right now. I mean, Bonefish Tarpon Trust has got a tag out. I support that. I don't have it on my truck, but I support it. And there's, of course, I support Bonefish Tarpon Trust. But there's a lot of other things out there that are suddenly, it's like they're enlightened. They're like, oh, wow, this Florida Bay thing and this Everglades thing is a mess. Yes, it is a mess. And it's going to get worse if they don't do something about it. So the projects are in, the projects are on. There's a lot of things happening. The biggest one that I have physically seen and driven over is the elevation of US 41. 41 was down on the bottom land, and it was blocking the water as it moved through. So over the past few years, more than a few years, they have been elevating big sections of US 41. The Tamiami Trail, I guess I should call it. This is the east-west version, not the south version over in Fort Myers down toward Naples, but when you turn, it goes east-west. And the Tamiami Trail is being raised up, and it's really cool. When you drive over it, it's amazing. You have this beautiful view of the glades both ways, north and south, of the sawgrass, and I'm all for that. So anyway, my days have gotten ridiculous. I started with being busy. It's crazy. I'm retired. What the hell's going on? Whatever. Let's see, what else have we got here? Oh, back to the soft plastics. I'm going to start with the Red Eye Z-Man jig heads. They are basically they're lead colored. They don't color the lead itself, but they put in these beautiful, great big round eyes in them. And I've been using a lot of golden eye on those, but I'm going to use red on this one. So, what I know about Florida Keys, my book. What I know about fishing the Florida Keys, proof is in my hands by the 20th, I've been told. So it's at the editor. It'll go through a couple key processes and then get to me as a PDF so I can take a look at it. I'm sure Janelle and I will both go over it with a fine-tooth comb, and then it will go back to the publisher and then to the printer. So we're almost there, people. We are getting close, and I'm excited about that. Worked hard on that book. Received a red tide report recently, which I usually do. There's no sign of it in Florida at this point. Good news. I believe I mentioned this. I've got a new writing gig with Coastal Angler magazine, the Keys edition. The May issue is where my first short article appeared, and it's out. And I picked a couple up at Bass Pro today on the way back from Key West. And yay, it's in there. You can check it out. If you're not where you can pick up a Keys version of the magazine, it's also available online. So you just have to go to coastalanglermag.com and then search for the Keys edition. Let's see. Back to the fishing for a few minutes. Tarpon are everywhere. If you have a boat big enough to attack them, big enough to go after them, and big enough to avoid the insanity of the winds, you'll catch them. Coming back across all the bridges, there were boats in, near, or under just about every single bridge we went over, parked. They've got what was good was it was an inbound tide. I take it that, it looked that way on the pilings. Inbound tide, wind out of the south-southeast. So the wind was pushing against the bridge and pushing against the stern of the boats, along with an inbound tide. It doesn't get much better than that. And there were a lot of boats out there for a Monday, which tells me it's working. Because normally on a Monday, you might see a guide or two and a few working people, maybe they're playing hooky, but there were a lot of boats out this morning underneath the bridges. So it tells me that the tarpon are definitely have definitely moved in. Let's see. But keep in mind the wind is still blowing, so be careful. You got a little flats boat or something, you want to be a little cautious. But man, everybody wants to get a poon. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. Water clarity might be a little cloudier than usual too. You want to keep that in mind. That usually helps though. With the tarpon thing, when you start throwing a large, nice fat fly in there, or a plug, makes some noise, or a live bait. That actually helps disguise the line, the leader, and all the things that go with it. So, in my opinion, when you fish of any kind, when you fish for tarpon, and you've got some stain in the water, a little cloudiness to the water, that tends to help. A little easier to fool them, I think. One thing that's been missing is rain. That's been the most bizarre thing. We are just not getting any rain. It's been very, very dry, as in watering plants and splashing stuff every few days because it just dries out. The humidity now is starting to rise, so that should help that problem a bit. But it's time for our rains to start. Rainy season should be here. Man, it's been a weird year. It may get weirder as we go along. We are getting a few spot showers, as I call them, where they just come roaring through and it's over. Almost no accumulation. Everything gets really wet. It's like driving through a car wash. So hopefully that'll get better. Okay, I'm going to do my best not to bore the heck out of everybody here. So I'm going to run with this. This has to do with music. Yay! One of my favorites. But like I said, I'm not going to try to bore you with this too much. Well, I'm going to bore you a little bit. Some of you that aren't tuned to it, no pun intended. But I'm a raging music fan. I've been that way for a long, long time. You have to remember I was born in 1953. In 1963, when I was 10 years old, the Beatles showed up. And that's all she wrote, baby. And on the same year and a half or so, the Stones showed up. And then the protest songs all started. Yeah. Joan Baez, the early stuff from Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Who else can we pick on? Bob Dylan. That's the most obvious one. Yeah, so I was kind of, Simon and Garfunkel, I was kind of in the middle of all that as a kid. And when you're 10 years old, I was quite impressionable, and I love music. I really do. So as most of you know, my songwriting career sort of took off this year. It still seems weird to me that songs that I wrote back in the mid-'90s are as good as my producer says they are. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain the inner workings or feelings of that. Things that I wrote years ago with my heart, some love songs, some sad songs, things like that, just got put away in a folder until this year, or a little late last year, I guess it was. And, it's very strange for me to hear something that I wrote go into production and go into play and get recorded and then to pop out on Apple Music. You're like, wow, that's pretty cool. At the same time, it's quite humbling. But everyone keeps telling me, oh, they're good. Well, okay. It just seems weird to me. It's like, well, of course, same thing as when you write. Is it really that good? I don't know. How do guys feel about their bestseller? If they write a book and it becomes a bestseller, they have to be elated, but at the same time, they have to be doubtful of their capability, certainly to write another one. That's like album number 2, right? The big star comes out. Well, the big star ain't a star. He or she comes out with the very first album. We all go crazy over it. We love it. Then what do they have to do? They got to produce another one. Yeah, that's when it gets tricky. Writing songs, I find very, very gratifying. I'm not going to call it easy. It's easier than writing a book, I will tell you that. But the pace of the song, the rhyming, the small little details that go into it, are, I think, much, I won't call it more difficult, but more rewarding, I guess, when you finally get it right. When you hit that 1 or 2 lines where it just meshes and makes the song, your brain is like, yee, like, yippee, this is really great. Then you got to go on to the next line or 2. I have no trouble writing the first 2 verses. I have a lot of trouble with writing the last few. So that's where I need work. I actually wrote my first songs back in high school, along with 2 friends of mine, both named Steve. And I was thinking about that this morning. Steve O'Neill and Steve Mumford. Those 2 wrote songs. 3 of us wrote songs together in high school. We thought we were going somewhere, man. We can write Pink Floyd stuff. That's easy. Yeah, right. We did write a lot of songs, though. We had a few that people really liked. But I'm the only survivor of the 3 of us. It's my buddy Steve O'Neill died back in 2015, and Steve Mumford died just a couple of years ago, I think 2020 or 2021, and it's kind of, that's sad times for me. But as you age, you start losing the people around you, and that's just the way it is. The trick is to survive. So that hits me hard sometimes when I think about it. But Billy Davidson, my producer, he recommended that I go to the Songwriters Festival this year. He said, you have got to go down there, not just because you're songwriting. You need to go and experience it. You need to go to get filled with ideas and how these people work and how songwriting is done. And everyone, by the way, has a different story. No songwriter that I talked to over the last week does anything the same way. They all have a different process that they go about. Some of them hide, go into the dark room and write the songs. Some of them drink a lot and write a song. You hear those a lot on the radio. There's always, always whiskey or something involved in a country music song, or beer. And some of them lose love or lose someone that's dear to them or whatever, and then they write on that right away. A lot of people write on some silly saying that somebody says to them, either at a party, in a conversation. A lot of stuff is picked up at a bar. You sit in a bar, you can hear people say the damnedest things. And that one line, that one silly thing they say, that can be the beginning of a really good song. And so that's what I soaked up. That's what was going on down in Key West this week. So Billy had me attend it, the Songwriters Festival. It was the first one I've been to. This is the 28th year. I can't believe I didn't do it earlier. But I guess what it was is I just thought of it as a Songwriters Festival and not an outsider festival. The reality is anyone can go, and I think most anyone would enjoy it based on the smiles on the faces that I saw at the many shows and concerts we went to. So I would have to imagine that most anybody would really enjoy this. So in the future, when it shows up, the 29th, of course, will be next early May. Check it out. If you get a chance, go. I've long been a fan of songwriters, not just the big, well-known ones, but there are others that have written tons of songs for many artists. Case in point, everyone loves Kenny Chesney. Well, most everyone. I like him a lot. I love his songs. He has a new album out called Born, B-O-R-N, just like it sounds. There are 15 songs on that album, and Kenny wrote 5 of them. So who wrote the other 10? Oh, by the way, and the 5 that Kenny wrote were mostly co-written by people that wrote the other 10. On the previous album of Kenny's, which I own, it's called Here and Now, has a lot of great songs. One of them is called it's the Captain song. Guy's named Captain. That's actually written by a guy named Slater who lives in Key West. Kenny on that album wrote 2 of the 12 tracks. So what I'm trying to point out here is most people don't know that. And this is true for a lot of albums. There are very few artists out there who actually write their own songs. They absorb like a sponge. They listen. They get popular by maybe writing 1 or 2 songs that become moderate hits, maybe top 10, maybe 15, maybe make it even to number 2, the dreaded number 2 without going to 1. And those people work hard to listen to the people that are writing songs, and they invite them into their circle, and the next thing you know, they got hit after hit after hit. And that's the kind of stuff that has long fascinated me. George Strait has written or co-written 26 songs on 30 albums, and he has dozens of number 1 hits. I think he's at like 60 number 1 hits now. So you have to put the average, right? 1 per album. It's his song. It's like you step back and look at that and go, now don't get me wrong. He's fantastic. He has a wonderful voice. He knows how to crank out a love song. There ain't no doubt about that. And most everybody, especially women, will follow him to the ends of the earth. But the reality is he's not the songwriter on most of the songs he sings. But somebody is. The songwriter's fascination really came with the purchase of albums back in the 60s and onward. Vinyl. It's funny how it's come real full circle now. Almost all albums had liner notes. And if you're not sure what that is, it was usually either the album opened up like a double album, opened up wide with plenty of stuff to read in the middle, or it had like a card inside. Not really a card. It was a piece of paper the same size as the album. It slid out, and that was called the liner notes. And on the liner notes was everything from the artist, the producer, everyone that played instruments on the album, and what song they played on, along with who wrote them. And so you could actually look and see who wrote all these different songs, especially your favorites. And my job, in my mind, was to go find that writer again. I didn't care who the artist was. I just liked the writer's song. Man, that's a great song. I wonder what else he wrote or she wrote. And so you work it that way. Nowadays, ain't no liner notes because there ain't no albums. Well, there's albums coming back. Thank you, Lord. CDs hit. Cassettes hit. Not enough room for that stuff. Little bitty format. If you bought cassettes in the day, you know what I'm talking about. You were lucky if you pulled out the cardboard section of the cassette and you could actually read what was, who did what. And if you did, it was microvision. You had to go get a magnifying glass. And then when CDs came out, it was just as bad. And then guess what? Digital music, download music, nothing on that. You got to go physically look it up. Got to go find out like who wrote it. And most people don't do that. And that was my fascination. My fascination was that one guy wrote a really great song for James Taylor. He probably wrote one for Carly Simon, and he probably wrote someone in the circle the same way. As the musicians were the same way. Carly Simon, James Taylor. You could rattle off all these early artists. They all use the same drummer. They all use the same bass player. There's a reason for that. The guy's good, but they don't tell you that now. You don't see that when you do downloads, and that's very disappointing. That's why I'm happy vinyl's back. It didn't take me long to figure out how and who the prolific writers really were and who wrote the best songs because of this. And, and then which artist sings them. So the festival for me was songwriting credits on steroids. What the festival celebrates is the actual writers of some of the most popular songs recorded, and that you all know. All of you know them as number one, number two songs, especially if you listen to middle-of-the-road country music, new country, old country, and even earlier, and even some of the rock songs like Southern rock, like the Eagles, Jackson Browne, things like that. Most of these songs are extremely popular, but they were not written by the artist that sings them. As an example, last night at the event of the final show at the Key West Theater, we got to listen to Earl Bud Lee. Now, y'all don't know who he is, I'll bet you. I'll bet you a beer. That you have no idea who Earl Bud Lee is. Well, Earl Bud Lee got up on stage, and I knew who the hell he was. This is the man who wrote songs for Garth Brooks. And one of the most popular songs on the planet is Friends in Low Places. He wrote it. Garth didn't write that. Garth sang it. And as a matter of fact, Chestnut, he sang it earlier than that. But Garth Brooks was a smart one. He played it right. The first 3 or 4 chords of that song, when it starts, everyone in the daggone world knows what that song is going to be when it starts. That's how popular the thing was. It sold 60 million copies. Think about that. Friends in Low Places. Here's the guy who wrote it playing it for us on stage. It was cool. It's just him and a guitar. And you finally get the idea, oh my God, that guy sat somewhere, living room, back office, basement, on the back porch, and he wrote this song. And it became wildly popular. And that's the kind of stuff I love about the festival. As a matter of fact, that night there were 9 songwriters performing the hit songs that they wrote for the big artists that we all know and have heard on the radio. Heck, Sonia Lee, I'm going to get this right, Leigh, Sonia Lee, sung many of hits that she's written for the Zac Brown Band. That's right, she. A lot of that Zac Brown stuff you hear, Sonia wrote it or co-wrote it. One of the most popular and one of my favorites is Sweet Annie. I love that song. She wrote that. The really cool thing is you get to see these songs and hear these songs as they were written by the songwriter and not as they were sung by the artist. That's the thing I really enjoy. And it starts to put this thing in your head. You're like, wow, this is really amazing. Especially for me. Here's a few details about the performances and about what goes on in the Songwriters Festival. So for those of you that think you might want to try this, a great many of the shows are done in the round. I'm going to put that in quotes, in the round, in quotes, and are performed in lots of locations in Key West, some small, some large, some outside, some on porches of houses, and that's what makes it fun. What in the round means is there will be at least 3 performers to as many as 9 songwriters performing their songs in rotation. So if you have 3 on the stage at a time, each will get about 3 songs each, but they will do them in rotation. Let's just say the artist to the left will start, the middle will do the next song, and the third song will be the one on the right, and then it'll rotate back to the beginning again until each one's sung 3 songs. And then they allow an hour for those. And when you go to the bigger shows, like if you go to the Key West Theater, they typically do 9 artists. So in the round will be 3 different segments with 3 artists for an hour. So you get there at 8 and you get out of there at 11 at night. And it's fabulous. Every single person up there is singing an original. They're not covers. It's their song. They wrote it. And I think that's what really is fascinating about this whole thing. And almost every single one they sing obviously is what? Their number one hit or hits. I got a big kick out of the guy who would go, oh, this was number 2. Should have been a number 1. And then when he sings it, you go, yeah, you're right, dude. That probably should have been a number 1. This year was the 28th annual Songwriters Festival. There were over 175 artists/songwriters, and 225 performances at 30 venues. This was over a 5-day period from Wednesday evening until the final show that we went to on Sunday night at 8 p.m. You really had to plan your day. I had heard artists that had written songs for everybody. I mean, every artist you can imagine. I wrote this for so-and-so. Oh, and I did this one for so-and-so. Oh, yeah, and about 5 years ago, I wrote one for the, and you're like, good Lord, dude. But I got to hear Tommy Sims. There's another one. You know who he is? He wrote the song for Eric Clapton called Change the World. Yeah. I'm not going to hum it, but you probably know it. We had lots of highlights, but perhaps the best was a pool party that my producer Billy Davidson put on with his friend Larry Baker. They set up songwriter Chuck Cannon. Both of them are huge fans and managed to get him to appear at the pool. That was fantastic, to say the least, to be part of a small, intimate group of about maybe 30 people. Chuck is probably best known, Chuck Cannon, C-A-N-N-O-N, is probably best known for writing most of Toby Keith's songs, 33 of them, as a matter of fact. He and Toby Keith were good friends. Toby Keith bought him a farm. Imagine that. He was talking about his house and his stuff. It was really hysterical. Oh, that song was a house anyway. So these hits they just kept writing together. They spent hours and hours together writing songs. He even did a medley of Toby Keith songs, which I thought was wonderful, that actually drew in a crowd off the street. This was a motel in the south end of off of Duval. I'm sorry, off of Simonton. And we got invited. There's a big pool in the middle of this place with the hotel wraparound, and they'd set up a stage near the pool, right next to the pool. And so even the pool people staying there that were around would obviously come in there. They knew that was going to happen. Well, man, when this guy started playing Toby Keith hits, it was crazy how fast people came in off the street. It was really wild, actually. It was really awesome. I mean, we got to. It was so cool to hear the songs as they were originally written and sung by Chuck Cannon. And by the way, Chuck Cannon's got a personality that does not quit. He's hilarious. He tells little stories about how the song started, where it came from, and why. And I don't know, we all got a real big kick out of him. He was really something. By the way, he swore up and down he's coming next year because he had such a good time at the party. God, I hope so. So will I be there next year? You bet. I wouldn't miss it for the world. For me personally, it really helped me understand how to structure songs and how to keep them interesting and how to tell a story. Next to fishing, songwriting is now one of my favorite things to do. Retirement's a great thing. It really is. It opens up a world for us old farts to be able to go out and do stuff that we really, really enjoy doing. I enjoy playing music. I get to do more of it now than I ever have. I'm a crazed bagpipe player. I get to do that. I get to write books, although this one will probably be my last because the songwriting is really starting to push hard as being my favorite thing to do because it mixes playing the guitar with writing songs and actually writing, which is, I never viewed writing songs as writing, but it really is. It's storytelling. So I'm looking forward to kind of getting into that. So, however, I promise I'll get back to fishing shortly. I really, really will. And now I believe it might be time for useless information.
And now, from the original book of useless information.
You are a reject! You are useless! You can get a job down here cleaning toilets!
Here's your host, Captain Rob Modies.
Well, he swears up and down he's useless, but
he might be all right eventually, but completely useless.
With useless information.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, this is filed under Wedded Bliss, W-E-D-E-D, Wedded Bliss in the book. Number 1, 2 out of 5 husbands tell their wives daily that they love them. I'm one of those. I do. Number 2, 40% of women have hurled footwear at a man. Fortunately, that hasn't happened to me yet. Number 3, 35% of people who use personal dating ads or websites are already married. Jeez. 35%. Ah, Lord. Number 4, yes, there's a bonus. There will be a bonus number 4 from here on out, I think. So, yes, it's becoming a habit to do 4 because I'm not against a clock or an advertisement break, right? Okay. Nobody has yet explained satisfactorily why couples who marry in January, February, and March tend to have the highest divorce rates. And there you go. Yeah, wonderful. And before I go, Get yourselves outside. Spring has sprung. It's time. Quit sitting around. Bicycling, golfing, those fun things up north that you didn't get to do when it was cold and icy and ridiculous. At least I hope you get to get outside. I'm going to do my best to get some fishing in this coming week. I'm so ready. It has been a long, long layoff. Take care, y'all. I'll talk to you next week. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed listening, please tell a friend, leave a review, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. The Facebook page is Sketchy Outdoors, website sketchyoutdoors.com, where you can find all the previous podcasts and a schedule of what's to come. Until next time, get outdoors and enjoy.